Welcome back to the GSC Executives Podcast with your host, Caitlin Ty. And today we're delighted to have on Fiona Brunskill, who is the Chief People Officer of TfL. It's a pleasure to have you on.
It's a pleasure to be here, Kate. Thank you for the invite.
Thank you very much. So could you tell us a little bit about your professional journey and what led you to your current role as Chief People Officer at TfL?
I certainly can. So when I left school, which was a long time ago now, I didn't really have a plan. I didn't understand even what HR was. It wasn't something that I'd come across on my day-to-day. And so I studied economics and history and psychology at A-level and was advised by the careers advisor at the time to go into a finance sort of function.
Yeah.
So I went to university and did a degree in finance, and halfway through realised this is not for me. Now, I finished the degree, I hesitate to say, but I very quickly realised that, when they said the most exciting thing was finding missing numbers on a spreadsheet, that maybe that wasn't the excitement level I was looking for.
Yeah.
So I finished university and went travelling. And had the opportunity while I was travelling in Australia to work in a casino. And working in a casino, I was then given the opportunity to start training others on how everything worked. And that sort of sparked, I suppose, a bit of a light in me to think about, maybe training or HR could be an option.
Yeah.
And so returned from travelling and literally just started applying for loads of jobs because I didn't have any money. I had no debt, but I had no money. And ended up securing an HR role at Barclays as an HR advisor, which was predominantly training led, but obviously gave me an insight into the broader HR activity.
Yeah.
And that was the start of the journey. And from there, I then moved to Group 4 Securicor as a regional HR manager. I then moved to Asda and spent nearly 11 years at Asda doing a huge number of HR roles, but specialising at the end of time there in industrial relations and employee relations. Was then approached by Coca-Cola European Partners at the time to go and join them, doing a supply chain HR director and ER and IR role, which I took, and then ended up at TfL in 2000, starting off by doing a director of business partnering and ER role, becoming Chief People Officer over 3 years ago. So it's been a really interesting journey with a lot of different organisations, but most of my experience is in the private sector, but the last 6 years has been in the publicly funded.
Well, thank goodness you went travelling and got that job at the casino.
Quite. Otherwise, who knows what I'd be doing? Finding missing numbers on a spreadsheet, maybe.
I mean, I'm a bit shocked that you did come back to England.
My visa expired, so
knew there must have been a reason.
Yeah.
So obviously you kind of touched on it a bit there of what inspired you to pursue your career in people leadership. But was there anything else? Was it just kind of the love of training people and working with people rather than, as you say, looking at numbers on a spreadsheet?
Yeah. So I think no organisation can work without people. And sometimes people don't, or organisations don't always put that at the core.
Yeah.
And actually how we make sure that people can succeed as individuals will then help an organisation succeed and reach its business objectives. So having worked with some really inspirational leaders in the past, I have seen the difference good leadership makes. So having a passion for making sure people are able to lead, they have the tools and support around them to help them make decisions, because not all decisions are easy. Giving people opportunity of career pathing and skills improvement so that they can realise their own personal ambitions, but also making sure that regardless of background, regardless of any kind of characteristic, everybody's able to thrive is absolutely critical, because organisations succeed by diversity, and I mean diversity in its truest form, which is we will all have different experiences, we will all have different belief systems, but actually if you bring everybody together, you can usually solve what can be quite challenging problems far better than if everybody's the same. So really driving that diversity through an organisation and making sure it's inclusive. So that everybody can deliver, for me, is probably the thing that really keeps me stuck in HR. And there's been many a times where, would you like to go into operations? Would you like to go into strategy roles? And actually the core reason for staying in the HR profession has been about how do you help people grow, achieve their own ambitions and give people opportunity.
And it must be so kind of rewarding to kind of see people kind of work their way up and kind of help nurture their career as well. So I can really understand why you kind of want to kind of stay within people rather than going into kind of different operations.
Different roles.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So what key values or principles define your leadership style, and how do they show up in your day-to-day work?
So I think accepting that everybody's going to come with a difference of view or opinion, and that your view might not be right. So there is a tendency sometimes to think, oh, well, I must be right because I've thought it through. But we're always applying our own lens, right? So the more you can actually stop and go, hold on a minute, why is somebody approaching this differently? So really including people in that decision making. It's about being collaborative. So rarely does anyone achieve anything on their own. So for me, collaboration is critically important, and it's something I drive through my own leadership teams, but also across my peer group as well, which is how do we make sure that people are working together as much as possible to achieve an end goal is really important. And I think that real care for people. So you don't necessarily have to have had a similar experience to show empathy, and you don't necessarily have to agree with someone's position to understand why they may be feeling a certain way. But actually, if you can show care, and sometimes all you need to be able to do is say to somebody, how are you? And I'm sorry you're feeling that way, and I'm here if you want to chat. Don't have to solve everyone's problems. I think the things that really push me through. It's really important to me.
Communication is key. So TfL operates in obviously complex and highly visible environment. How have you navigated major challenges or setbacks, and what lessons have you learned from this?
So to say it's been challenging since I joined TfL is probably an understatement, because I joined as we were going into the global pandemic that was COVID-19, which I think a lot of people have forgotten, but it's the tail of it still lingers. And I think some of the silver lining is actually it allowed us at TfL to really move to more of a principle-based policy place, which allowed you to think about what should we be doing for people, as opposed to these are the rules and you must follow the rules, and to get to A you have to have done B, C and D. So that, leading the pandemic response from a policy perspective and from a people perspective was really good for me. But recognizing so many people had to deal with real trauma as we went through COVID, and you see it play out now as people enter the workplace for the first time and they saw the school years disrupted. You see it with people who've lost people who they couldn't be with, and the grief that they still live with. You see it from the fact that people had to completely change their whole social interactions and what that meant for them. So it there was a lot of damage done that I think people moved on from, because no one really wants to reference that time, but it was still there. And I think for TfL, it meant that where our revenue is predominantly fare box, so it's our users who pay, that fell off a cliff. So we ended up in a really, really challenging financial situation where we had to go to government as the lender of last resort, in effect, to bail TfL out. And with that came a lot of conditions for funding about what we needed to do, how we needed to manage our people, what we should be doing around pay and change. And so that was also critical about that you can't just look out the window and say, oh, it's not us, it's the government. You have to still lead your teams to be able to say, well, this is what we're doing, but this is why. This is how we're going to manage it. We also had a cyber attack in 2024, and that required a whole organisational change of mindset, including having to get everyone to in-person reset passwords. So we've had a lot to deal with in the 6 years that I've been here, but you learn a lot, and it's an organisation that really actually thrives in a crisis. And so how we embed some of the benefits that have come out of those things, such as things like hybrid working, things like making things principle-based, we just need to continue and make sure that they're still there as an organisation.
And as I say, you've learned from those situations. Obviously, touch wood, there's not another COVID-19 or anything like that anytime soon. But at least you've kind of got that as a case study to use for in the future.
And what I would say to everybody who's listening is things aren't perfect. So we would have got many things wrong in the pandemic because you didn't know. So you're having to deal with things in real time and manage it in real time. And it doesn't matter, because hindsight's a wonderful thing where everybody goes, well, we could have done X or could have done Y. And sometimes what you've got to do is be able to make decisions with what's in front of you and accept it may not be an optimum decision later down the line, but you're doing it knowingly. So, and that's okay.
Yeah. you've got the facts in front of you.
Yes.
If you think, and as you
Yeah.
said before, you've got the team around you to support you to say, yeah, this is
Yep.
what we should do. You've got to make a decision
Yep.
doing something. You can't just kind of sit there and
not make
happen.
any decision, because that's worse.
Exactly.
And people need certainty. So I think as a leader, it's really important that you give people that direction and certainty.
Yeah.
And I think the resilience you build up in yourself going, I've made the best decision I could have made, really then starts paying it forward.
So what motivates you most in your role, especially when leading change and scale across a diverse workforce?
So I think the motivation is, how do you help people achieve their own career ambitions as much as possible? And the reason I say career ambitions is some people are absolutely happy doing the job they're doing and don't want to move on, and that's okay. And we shouldn't be going, oh, you need to move or you need to do something different.
Because we need people who are like that.
Absolutely. They're the backbone.
Yeah, exactly.
The backbone of what we do. But there are many people who just haven't had the same life opportunities as people like myself, who've had the opportunity to go to university and have had the opportunity to travel the world. And how we level that up and promote equity by giving people the opportunity to have experiences that they wouldn't have had otherwise, I think is really important. And that's what motivates me. And we do a lot of work with disadvantaged young people who are severely neurodivergent, giving them work experience and giving them sort of 9 months internship with us to really give them that ability to understand what work's like and how they'll be supported. And a number of them roll off into jobs with us. Others can roll off into education or jobs elsewhere. But I think what's important is, for the first time, they're given that structure and that belief. And a lot of them will come and talk to us at the end of the programme saying that no one's ever given them that time or that opportunity. And I think that transcends everything in the workforce, whether you're, in your first entry level role and looking for your first step up, or whether you're at middle management and you want to get to senior leadership, or whether you're at senior leadership and you want to get to an executive committee. Sometimes people just need that support to help them get there.
Yeah, that's someone behind them, just giving them that little bit of help. Yeah. Well, as you say, kind of, even when you came back from traveling, same as, I guess, everyone. You don't just apply for one job and get it. It doesn't matter how.
No, I applied for loads of roles.
Apply for loads, exactly. And obviously helping the people who have that disadvantage, that could give them that helping hand to, whether they stay here in kind of their career goes from here or go elsewhere. That's definitely
really important.
them in their career. Yeah. So what achievement in your career are you most proud of, and why does it stand out?
So I think if I look at my whole career, there's been a number, because I think sometimes when people talk about achievements, talk about the really big things.
Yeah.
But I think probably one of the key achievements I've had is learning my art and skill as managing other people. And that started when I was a lot younger, and at times I probably I know I didn't get things right, and I know that I took feedback, and sometimes when you get that feedback for the first time, it can be quite painful to hear, when somebody says, when you did X, it made me feel like Y. But actually, as long as you go away and reflect on it, and sometimes we all need a bit of time, was the other advice I give is, sometimes the first time you hear feedback, your instinct is to go, no, that's not right, or try and defend yourself. Actually, sometimes the best bit of advice I could give is just go away, reflect on it. If you still feel it's unfair after, say, 48 hours, then go back and challenge, because not all feedback you will receive is fair. But actually, most of the time, there's something in there that you can learn from. And I think for me, there's a million things I could list of things that have been achieved and done. But which is fantastic. But none of that's done without your team.
Of course.
And the people who work for you and the people who look to you for direction. And actually, if you're not a good leader, generally, you'll find it really hard to achieve objectives that people set you.
Yeah.
So spending that time really finding out what's authentic for you, what works for your team, and actually what you're going to be unapologetic about, that's okay. You won't make everybody happy. It's not about that. It's about finding your groove to make you feel comfortable. And I think that's probably my biggest achievement.
And kind of having that confidence to be like, this is who I am. And then I think as well, if you're confident in yourself, then more people are then kind of motivated around you, because it's like, right, this is Fiona. I know what she stands for. I know that she's here to help, but she is our leader and I look up to her as well. So, no, but that's fantastic. We've had so many achievements as well. So why do you believe diversity, equity and inclusion are critical priorities for organisations today?
So I'm going to start by saying there might be people out there who are worried reading that DEI is dead, especially if you pick up any of the international press, people rolling back, people saying it's not important. Well, as soon as we start saying people aren't important, that's the point you can actually say DEI isn't important, because we all, or every one of us, will have some form of difference to the other person who they are sat next to.
Exactly.
And actually, what we should be doing is allowing everybody to bring their best into the workplace.
Yeah.
And sometimes that means that you've got to do more to help certain groups than other groups because they have not had the same opportunity. And we do not live in an equal world, regardless of what anyone would have you believe. And therefore, it tends to be certain groups find it more challenging. So we know women tend to suffer more, not always, but tend to suffer more from confidence issues.
Yeah.
We know for some of our Black colleagues, they don't see role models at a senior level. And if you don't see somebody who has done the role before you, it's very difficult for you to imagine that you can do it yourself.
Of course.
So how do we help people break down barriers? Well, you only help them break down barriers by actually being conscious about it and actually putting in activities that can help people achieve what therefore they need to achieve. And so I will always challenge anyone who says, oh, we've either done D&I and it's all fine.
It can't be done. There is no oh, this is the end, right? Tick box, there we go, sorted, done it for the year.
And I think it's accepting, and I always accept there is so much more we can do at TfL. So while we do a lot that's good, we launched our own action and inclusion strategy 3 years ago, and I'm really proud of that. Is it fixed? No, of course it's not fixed, because there's always going to be something that causes a challenge around you. And what we've got to do is keep on trying to learn, trying to listen, and trying to make sure that what we then end up doing tries to fix issues for the majority. And again, recognizing we cannot fix the world. We can't fix everything around us. What we can do is at least try and promote that while you are here, you will be welcome for whoever you are.
I mean, I think a lot of it is just, as you mentioned there briefly, just education, not just kind of for yourself, but for wider teams and helping to educate the whole company as well. Because I think once a lot of people get a bit nervous speaking about it, and it's mainly comes down to they don't want to say the wrong thing, because they don't know themselves. So obviously it is such a priority for any business, and as I say, there's never a end to it. It's that continuous kind of education and learning and spreading the word about it as well.
And I think organisations need to be conscious. So it's part of our colleague strategy. So the 3 pillars, we have 3 pillars, and one of them is creating an inclusive culture, which is where action and inclusion stems from. And that's the top level strategy within TfL. So we have 5 chapters, colleague being one. And so it does take your leaders to actually really commit to this. It can't be just it's devolved to a diversity and inclusion team somewhere in an organisation for them to fix it. Because actually the people who will change it are leaders. It's not an HR team.
Yeah, because everyone looks up to the leaders. Yeah, exactly. So what barriers to DEI in leadership have you observed, and how have you worked to address them at TfL?
So I think in the past people haven't understood necessarily why inclusion and diversity are important for business objectives. So it's arguably a bit like engagement. People go, well, what's the return? Well, surely you would rather people were happier at work than not happier. But, if you want to monetize things, I think it's more, some of the barriers come from people's ignorance of they don't understand why people might feel a certain way because they haven't experienced something, and they don't have the curiosity to spend time understanding why someone else might feel the way they do. And that's no one's fault. That's just lenses and belief systems that we all have that we tend to think everybody else would feel the same. So I think traditionally there's been a bit of probably ignorance, and not in a negative way, just not the lack of curiosity. I think the other barrier is, how do you make a move from a protected characteristic getting something versus everyone getting something that enables equity.
Yeah.
And I think in the past, there has been occasions where all organisations are focused on one characteristic, which has the opposite effect of being inclusive. And isn't great for the people who benefit from it, because everybody makes a comment like, well, you got the job because you are. And so focusing on inclusion, but promoting equity to make sure everyone's starting from the same playing field, which means you may need to take some actions that help certain groups. You may need to do some education that helps other groups. That's okay. But then you go, right, and now we've got to the equity. So now what we're going to do is make sure that everybody's given the same opportunities to apply and progress.
It's inclusion of
it's inclusion of everyone. And I think we have to keep that at our forefront, because again, everybody thinks differently. You can't judge who somebody is by how they look. There's a lot of hidden characteristics. So, and you can't go around with a billboard around your neck going, this is who I am, and this is, and nor should we. So it's really important we get to know people as individuals, understand their barriers, and help them achieve.
So how do you foster a culture where people feel safe to share their experience and perspectives on inclusion and belonging?
So do I think we've cracked this? No. So I think more people are open to sharing their own experiences than what they were. We have some fantastic colleague network groups across TfL, and they are great as a community for people who either want to learn more about a particular characteristic or who identify with that, to be able to share common experiences, work together to promote the benefits and what they can bring, but also have that sense of community within the group. So they do a fantastic job. And I think we also have to showcase how we live our values every day as well. And we get colleagues to do that. So do I think we're at a point where everybody would come and say, yes, I feel happy to share exactly who I am? No. Do I think we should aspire to that? Probably no, because people...
It's unrealistic.
Yeah, well, it's unrealistic. And also, some people are comfortable about sharing their lives and who they are. And other people want to come to work and do the job and don't want to share. And again, it comes down to an individual. So I think what you want to drive to, and what I want to drive to, is people who want to speak up feel like they can.
They've got the opportunity.
And feel like they don't live in fear. And actually, we're happy to hear their feedback and challenge, because sometimes people may want to raise something that we just go, do you know what? We don't agree with that. Or if they're sharing something that may be offensive to others, how do we educate them to go, while you've got a very strong view about one thing, somebody else might have an equally strong view on the opposite side. So how do you manage that within the workplace appropriately?
I mean, I guess depending on what situation that is, that could be quite challenging sometimes, especially if someone feels so strongly about it as well.
Well, there's some, quite frankly, some characteristics clash, just with, beliefs and go back to belief systems. And so it's how do you respectfully manage that within the workplace so that everybody can feel included and no one's feeling that, they, are being excluded because of who they are.
Which obviously no one should be. Exactly. So where do you think TfL currently sits on its DEI journey?
So I'd say we are certainly on our way, and probably quite significantly on our way. What we don't do as an organisation, this is something I feel really proud of, is we don't wash. So it's not like, you won't see us putting loads of branding up going, oh, this is us, and here we are, aren't we marvellous? And I think we're actually quite honest about where we are. So we know we do get a lot of things right. And I've got a fantastic team who are D&I experts. But where we don't get things right, I think we're open to go, actually, what more could we do? Or how could we change? Or how could we listen? And I think that's as important as anything. And this is not a destination. So I don't think you start this work and go, right, as long as we can tick all these boxes, we've achieved everything, and therefore you don't have to do anything anymore. Because I think the world around us is changing at such an alarming rate. It really brings into focus, hard-won rights that people have. And I was talking to one of my team the other week who is married and she's in the same-sex relationship. And she said, I never thought you'd see a rollback of rights in America. And it wasn't something that had crossed my mind, because while I'd read everything else that was going on in America at the moment, you sort of go, but surely that wouldn't happen here. But I can understand the fear people might have when they see something happening in a major democracy and going, well, what happens if that translates over the pond to us? And so we have to protect people still. And so would I have thought we'd be talking about that 2 years ago? No. But this is where we are. So, women who feel that their rights are being eroded in America, and across the world. So it's how do we keep on making sure that we don't become complacent and we recognise that no matter what we do organisationally, events that we've seen across the world, whether it be Israel and Gaza, whether there be what's happening in Iran right now, whether it, people have family members there. And therefore are seeing huge impact. And, it's dreadful seeing people suffer. So how do we keep that alive in an appropriate way, recognizing that these debates can become very, very polarized quite quickly? So making sure everyone feels that they get the support that they need while they're at work is important.
Definitely. So what future trends do you think will shape the people profession and workplace culture, and how is the TfL preparing for them?
So it would be probably remiss of me not to start with AI and technology. And I think a lot of young people, there's been a lot in the press recently saying AI is going to take people's jobs. Well, societally, I don't think that will happen, because ultimately, how do you then get people to do the other jobs? So
exactly,
I think
it's always going to be jobs that AI can't do.
Exactly.
We'll find another job.
And so, but the last sort of 10 or 15 years is seeing a huge shift in how we all live and how we work and how we are. And probably the biggest shift, if you look, there's some really good research, but between the 1920s and the 1960s, you could have pretty much got up and gone into a workplace and nothing would have changed. So, if you suddenly were time frozen in 1925 and turned up in 1960, there wasn't a huge difference. And then all of a sudden there was a big push with, the rollout of technology, but dumb technology, I would say, to a point. And I think you'll see, actually, if you started the workforce, or, in 2000, you'd stepped out the workforce and you suddenly step back in again, you probably sat there going, what's going on? So
it's not the same. You don't have the dial-up email, internet.
No, exactly. You don't. And you're not on pen and paper, and you don't have files. And so I think it's happening around us, but I think it's been happening for some time.
Of course.
I'm not sure AI will give all of its promised benefits, because every time I get a salesperson contact me to say, we've got this marvelous AI tool, it's going to do all of this.
And
it doesn't, and I'm not sure it will. But I think what we're going to need is people who can analyse data more, who can look at trends, who can spot what we do. And remembering that we're all humans and we need human interaction, I think that will be the bit that stops people. And, I read these really wonderful articles about, well, none of us will need to work. We'll all be on a universal basic income and tech will do all the work. Well, people need challenge.
Who's going to fix the tech?
Exactly. Well, one is going to, because you don't want the tech fixing tech, because then you won't need humans. But also, we need challenge as humans. Work is really, really good for your well-being.
Yeah.
It's really good for your mental state. It gives you, sort of structure. It gives you a reason to be. It gives you an identity. All of those things are really, really important. And so I think actually what we'll see, is that shift. But I fully appreciate, if you're leaving school or university now, it's probably harder than what it's ever been in trying to find entry-level roles. And my advice would be, just go out. If you can't find a paid work, go and do some volunteering, or go traveling. Go traveling, or upskill yourself. Go and do some reading. Go to a library where you can get free books and just do some upskilling. Go and speak to Job Centre Plus. There's help out there, and don't get disheartened when you see roles, sort of maybe passing you by, or applying for lots of jobs and not hearing anything. I think, unfortunately, it's a bit rude when people don't respond, but that's life. So I think that's the first one. But I do think with AI in particular and tech, what you will get is more data-driven decisions. So we'll move away from anecdotes, setting policy, and it will be, actually, this is what the data tells us. So this is how we fix things for the majority, as opposed to focusing on special interest topics or smaller. I think well-being, good mental health, making sure that people feel valued when they're at work, that they're contributing. And well-being is everyone's responsibility. It's not your employer's responsibility. It's not just your doctor's responsibility. It's everyone's responsibility. And you have to look in the mirror sometimes to go, what can I do to help myself? As well as going, I need help from professionals such as, doctors or consultants or, anyone, counsellors. You also may need to look at your employer because you may need an adaptation in how you're working. But it needs all three. It's a tripartite for it really to help people improve their mental health and well-being. And I think there's a lot of work. So Charlie Mayfield's leading the Vanguard work, which we're a part of, which I think will make a real difference to people, because this is about how do we give a structure to help people, be as well as what they can be in the workplace. And I think the final one is, how do we have an employment offer that is competitive and allows people at every stage of their career and life cycle to remain in work? And so whether we like it or not, we've got an aging population. That means that people are more likely to become ill. So how do we flex up and down what people are able to do? We've got people who will step out because they just want a career break. We've got people who will have families. We've got people with caring responsibility. So you've got all of this, and you've got 5 generations in the workplace. So how we have an offering that allows everybody to grow and thrive
and have
is going to be really important. And have equal opportunities is really important.
So kind of rounded off there, what advice would you give someone aspiring to build a successful career in people and leadership?
So start with credibility. It's really, really important. So do what you say you're going to do. Support people. If you don't know, be honest, put your hand up or go and read about it. Ask questions, be curious. I think it's so important that as a leader, you don't need to know everything. What you need to know is, does that sound about right or does it not sound about right? And ask questions. And there's never a stupid question, because the amount of times I've sat in a meeting and gone, I don't know what that acronym stands for. And I'll put my hand up even now and go, sorry, can you just remind me what that means? And everyone, thank God you asked, because I didn't know either. And so,
but that's the thing, because you think, oh, it's a stupid question. And then everyone else in the room is like, oh my goodness. And the thing is, if you don't ask the question, not only will you not know leaving the meeting, everyone else in the meeting won't know. And if it's something that's critical.
But you're making decisions, right? So someone's asking you for a decision, and how can you make a decision on something that you don't even understand?
Exactly.
Be like giving me in Chinese, I'd be like, no, don't know something you're saying. It's like,
but here's the answer.
Here's the answer.
What we're going to do.
So I think that's really important. And I think treating people with respect, recognizing that everyone will have their own difference, and learning to understand them and what makes them tick and what they need from you and what they don't need. And different people want different levels of support. Now, that doesn't always mean you manage everything that somebody wants. So have the confidence sometimes to go, while I appreciate that's what you want, this is what I need as well. So being able to vocalize that and explain why is important. I think being aware of your own values, and no one else can tell you what these are. You will find them yourself as you progress through your career. You'll find the things that are really important to you. And you'll understand the things that aren't. And I think when you know that, it's easier then to lead and manage others, because you can actually understand where there's a values sort of match. And I think knowing that helps you lead people better, because you're not going to convince somebody to change the values generally. And someone's not going to convince you to change yours. So actually, sometimes you just have to navigate through what this is going to be. And I think you see this more when you see in the workplace. You're not going to like everyone you work with. You're not going to want to spend time with everyone you work with outside of a work environment. That's okay, right?
That's just life.
That's okay. It's like every point in your life, there are people who are more your people and the people who aren't. Just know what that is, and then check yourself when they're speaking. If you think, I don't agree with them, or you're not agreeing with them because you don't
necessarily
them as much.
On with as much as someone else in your team or in the business. Or is it this kind of, they're not being using inclusion and kind of, they are actually saying something wrong. It's taking that, kind of going back to taking that 48 hours to go back and think about it.
Is it me or is it them?
Exactly.
And I think if you always start with, what could I have done differently, rather than going, well, they approached this in the wrong way, or they talked to me in the wrong way, or they did this. So if you start with what could I have done differently, generally speaking,
You're the wrong.
Yeah. And also you'll hone your skill a bit more to go, hold on a minute, because soon it becomes second nature to go, is that me or them? I think continuous learning,
Yeah.
people who tell you they know everything or they're a subject matter expert, that's great. But guess what? Everything's changing around you every day at a speed that you can never know.
Yeah.
And so take an interest in the world around you, take an interest in what's happening in the world at a macro level, because actually it might be impacting someone else. And the story I shared earlier about a colleague who works with me who is worried about something that's happening in America that hadn't even crossed my mind.
Yeah.
I would, even though I'm pretty up to date on world events, it hadn't been something that triggered me because I don't have that same concern.
Yeah.
So me understanding that makes me go, hold on a minute, that's why we need to make sure we're still doing the work that we are around sexual orientation.
Oh.
And the last point, and I think this is really important, is resilience.
Yeah.
And so resilience is not a dirty word. I think sometimes people see it as, people being blamed if they can't cope with events. But resilience is like a muscle and it grows the more you test it.
Yeah.
And that may mean putting yourself into uncomfortable situations, but actually it makes it far easier then to progress your career because you start having that muscle memory going, okay, everything was okay. I felt really uncomfortable. It wasn't the end of the world. I didn't like it.
Yeah.
It made me feel, anxious or sad or angry or whatever emotion you want to ascribe to it. But actually at the end of it, I've come out and I've learnt more and I've learnt more about myself and I've learnt more about other people. And so using that and growing that and not being afraid of when maybe you don't feel as resilient as what you feel like you should be, just going, actually, why am I feeling like this? And really sort of trying to analyze yourself is really, really helpful. So they would be the tips I would give.
And I think as well with being resilient, say if you're, how you mentioned there about how there's younger people, it is a lot harder for them kind of getting into the workplace, about having that resilience. And yes, okay, you might apply for 100 jobs, if not more.
Yep.
Yes, not all of them will give you feedback, but I'm sure there'll be positive feedback within that.
Yep.
So it's then going, right, I've done really well in this interview. Right, how can I?
What am I going to learn? Yeah.
Exactly.
And I think sometimes it can be hard when you get knockbacks.
Okay?
Oh,
of course.
And
no one likes saying,
exactly.
You're not good.
Yeah.
Oh, you need to do this.
Exactly. And it comes back to our earliest days as humans on the planet, which is if you're on the outside, you were vulnerable.
Yeah.
So just remember that is, sometimes it hurts because you think, why don't people want me? They don't know you.
Yeah.
So when they're pushing through hundreds of CVs at the game, they don't go, right, Kate, this is you, and we're not giving you the job. They don't look at it like that. So you've just got to keep on going. And, if you need help with your CV, go somewhere where they can help, like Job Centre Plus, or speak to a college lecturer, or go and speak to a friend who's maybe got a job and say, what would you do differently? And just take that feedback and keep on going.
Exactly. Having that resilience. Well, thank you very much, Fiona. It's been an absolute pleasure to have you on the podcast.
Yeah, thank you. It's been really, really good fun. So thank you, Kate. Thank you.
Thank you for joining us on this episode of the GSC Executives Podcast. Today's conversation was hosted and recorded by Caitlin Ty, with editing and production managed by Stephen Smith. The podcast is produced by GSC Executives in conjunction with Daniel Owen Limited. For more details about our executive search solutions, as well as upcoming episodes, please visit our website, gscexecutives.co.uk. If you're keen to hear more industry insights, please consider subscribing on your preferred podcast platform. Until next time, continue to lead with excellence.